Why is Goblin Piledriver never sad? Because he has protection from the blues.
Before we get into today's game, I want to talk about the sponsors for my channel. Card Conduit is the best way to sell your unused Magic cards. Whether you've got a box of unsorted bulk, or a complete and alphabetized set, there's a great option for everyone. With a payout averaging 19% better than using any one buy list, and that's after fees are applied, you can rest assured you'll get the best bang for your buck. If you're a skeptic like me, their easy customer service and detailed reports make the whole interaction transparent and safe. And if you use the affiliate link in the description below, or the promo code MTGMUDSTA, you'll save 10% off their fees. And 401 Games, Canada's one-stop shop for trading cards, board games, and hobby supplies. Not to mention an easy-to-use and great online buy list. And if you use the promo code MTGMUDSTA, your first purchase of MTG Sealed and Singles will be 5% off. And Dragon Shield, the strongest sleeves for your strongest deck. So be sure to use the code MUDSTA or the affiliate link down below to save 5% on your next order. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's patron shoutout goes to Sparky. Thanks for supporting me on Patreon. In today's game, we have Maximus, Mika, and Ian rejoining us. And Mika is playing his new Pramikon deck, keeping Deadeye Navigator, Mystic Monastery, Felwar Stone, Plains, Windfall, Ghostly Flicker, and Irrigated Farmland. Maximus is once more trying out his Edgar Markov no actual vampires in the deck with Bright Climb Pathway, Plains, Swamp, Pack Leader, Cloud Thresher Sliver, Volatile Claws, and an irregular cohort. I am playing my Greasefang deck, keeping Castle Lochthwain, Godless Shrine, Ancient Den, Smuggler's Copter, Cultivator's Caravan, Peacewalker Colossus, and King Makar the Gold Cursed. Last but not least, Ian is playing Raffine, keeping Psychosis Crawler, Hostage Taker, Return to Dust, Exotic Orchard, Swamp, River of Tears, and Mask of the Schemer. Mika wins the die roll and starts us off. He draws and plays a tap Mystic Monastery. Max plays a Scalding Tarn, cracking it and losing 1 to find a land. I just play a tap Godless Shrine. Ian plays a tap Prairie Stream. Mika draws, plays a Plains, and casts Felwar Stone. Max has a Plains as well, and he pays 2 for a Pack Leader, and passes. I draw for turn, and play Castle Lochthwain, and then pay 2 for a Smuggler's Copter. Ian's got an Exotic Orchard for turn, and also has a 2-drop with Lightning Greaves. Mika draws for turn, and plays a Temple of Enlightenment, which comes in tapped, and he scries 1. He's then able to tap out to cast Pramikon, and he picks the direction of right, and passes. Maximus draws, and plays a Swamp. He casts the Cloud Thresher Sliver, and passes after that. I draw and play a Swamp. I then cast Greasefang, and tap him to crew up the Smuggler's Copter, and go to combat. I swing it at Max since he's the only person I can attack, and I loot away a Peacewalker Colossus. Max then takes 3, and I pass after that. Ian draws and plays a Swamp. He then casts Raffine, and then equips it with the Lightning Greaves, and he goes to combat. He swings Raffine at me and connives, discarding Mask of the Schemer, and I take a total of 2, and Ian passes. Mika's turn has him playing another tap land for turn, with an Irrigated Farmland. He then plays Grand Melee, and he passes to Max after that. Max draws for turn, and plays a Plains. He casts Volatile Claws, giving all of his creatures +2/+0, and all creature types, and he moves to combat. He swings out at Mika, since he has to, and Mika blocks the Pack Leader with Pramikon, but takes 4. With nothing else, Max passes. I've got an Ancient Den for turn, and moving to combat, I return the Peacewalker Colossus with the Greasefang trigger, and then tap Greasefang to group the Smuggler's Copter. I swing it at Max for 3, and get to loot a card, and Max takes the hit. In my post-combat main phase, I cast Rowan's Grim Search, sacrificing the Colossus as part of the bargain, and then bin Aerial Surveiller, and a Thunderhawk Gunship off of it, and I pass after that. Ian plays a Sol Ring for turn, and then casts Spellskite. Going to combat, he swings Raffine at me again, and he gets a Connive trigger, discarding a Psychosis Crawler. I then take 3, and Ian passes. Mika plays Ghostly Flicker in his main phase, flickering the Pramikon and Felwar Stone. This allows him to change the orientation/direction of Pramikon, and forces everyone to go left. He then casts Martial Impetus on the Pack Leader, and he passes after that. Max draws and plays a Bright Climb Pathway. He then plays a regular cohort, and he goes to combat. He swings everything at me for a total of 14, and I take the hit. I draw and play a Swamp. I go to combat, and Greasefang brings back the Thunderhawk Gunship, and as it comes in, I get to make 2 Astartes Warriors tokens. I then crew up each vehicle with a Space Marine, and I send everything at Ian, looting off the Copter trigger, and Ian takes the full hit. In my post-combat main phase, I cast Day of Judgment to wipe the board, and pass after that. Ian draws and plays Azorius Chancery, floating a mana and bouncing a land back to hand. He then casts Liliana the Veil, and upticks her, making everyone discard a card. He then follows up with an Arcane Signet, and passes. Mika draws, and plays Terramorphic Expanse. He then casts Windfall, and we each discard our hand and draw 5. With nothing else, he passes to Max. Max's turn has him drawing and casting Edgar Markov, and he then moves to combat. He swings Edgar Markov at Mika while he can, and Mika takes 5 commander damage, and Edgar gets a +1/+1 counter from attacking. With nothing else, Max passes. I draw and play a Plains Return. I then cast Arcane Signet, and then recast Greasefang, and I go to combat. This allows me to bring back the gunship with the Greasefang trigger, and make 2 2/2 tokens, and I then crew it with Greasefang, and I swing it at Max. He takes the hit, and afterwards, I bounce the gunship back to my hand, and pass to Ian. Ian draws and plays an island. He casts Extract from Darkness, and we all mill 2. He then reanimates Angel of Destiny from it, and once that's done, upticks Liliana, and once more everyone discards a card. Ian then continues by equipping the Lightning Greaves onto the Angel of Destiny, and he swings it at Maximus. Max ends up taking no damage because of the ability, but Ian does gain 4, and with nothing else, Ian passes. Mika draws and plays a Clifftop Retreat. He casts a Darksteel Ingot, and then plays Stasis Coffin, and passes to Max. Max has a tapped Temple of Silence, scrying 1, and then plays an Imposter of the Sixth Pride. This gets him a Vampire token, and he then casts an Obelisk of the Erd, and chooses vampires for that as well. He then goes to combat, and he swings Edgar at Liliana, and she takes the hit and gets taken out. With nothing else, Max passes. I draw, and play a Swamp, and go to combat. I get to animate the gunship again because I discarded it to Liliana's ability, and I make 2 more tokens, and use one of them to crew up the gunship. I then swing the gunship at Ian, Greasefang at Max, and the Astartes Warriors at Mika. Everyone takes their hits, and I then move to my second main phase. This has me casting a Knight Paladin, which as it comes in deals 4 to each opponent, and I then pass turn. Ian draws and plays a Swamp. He plays an Extract Brain and targets me, putting 4 into the X, which has him looking at my hand and getting to cast a Cybership from it. Going to combat,
He swings the Angel of Destiny at Mika, which deals no real damage but gains him 4 life.
he passes after that. Mika's turn is quite quick, as he just draws and recasts Pramikon, picking left and passing to Maximus. Max draws and plays Temple of Triumph, scrying 1 again. He then plays Korvath Brightflame, and goes to find Sylvia Brightspear from the partner trigger. Going to combat, he swings out at me, and I crew up the Knight Paladin with an Astartes Warrior token, and block one of his tokens, but unfortunately, I still get taken out in combat. With nothing else, Max passes. Ian draws and plays Necromantic Selection. He wipes the board and gets to reanimate Korvath, and then moves the Lightning Greaves to it. He then swings Korvath at Max, and he takes the hit, and Ian then passes. Mika draws and casts Treasure Cruise. He draws 3, and then plays an island for turn. Once that's out, he casts Whirlwind of Thought, and then Legion's Initiative. The initiative being cast draws him a card from Whirlwind, and it then passes to Max. Max draws and casts Sun Titan, which as it enters, returns Mirror Entity from his graveyard to the field. He passes after that. Ian draws and plays Raffine's Silencer, discarding a land to connive with it. He then goes to combat, and swings Korvath at Mika this time. Mika takes the 3, and with nothing else, Ian passes. Mika draws for turn, and casts Pramikon again, and chooses left. After that, he passes, and during his end step, Max uses this as a chance to cast Nameless Inversion, and he targets Raffine's Silencer to give it -4 toughness. Max draws and casts his Sylvia Brightspear that we'd seen him tutor for. He then goes to combat and swings out at Ian. Max gets the Cloudthresher Slever token with the Sun Titan trigger, and Ian responds by casting Despark, and he takes out the Titan before it connects. The rest is still coming at him though, and Ian uses Drown in the Loch to get rid of the Mirror Entity. Ian then only takes 4 total, and after combat, Max then casts Umbilicus and passes. Ian bounces the Soul Ring to the Umbilicus for his upkeep trigger, and then draws for turn. He plays a Baleful Strix, drawing a card, and then recasts Soul Ring. He then casts Forbidden Alchemy, and he puts the 3 cards to his graveyard after keeping one of them. Moving to combat, Ian is forced to attack Mika with Korvath, and Mika just blocks with Pramikon, and with nothing else, Ian has to pass. Mika decides to take 2 from the Umbilicus during his upkeep and then draws her turn. He casts a Boros Signet, drawing from the Whirlwind of Thought. He then plays a Mantis Rider, and he goes to combat. Mika swings the Rider at Maximus, who chumps with his Cloudthresher Sliver. Mika then follows up with a Resplendent Angel and passes to Max. Max bounces a Plains to the Umbilicus and draws. He plays the Plains, and then recasts Edgar Markov, and he goes to combat. He swings out at Ian again, and Ian chumps the token with a Baleful Strix, and takes the rest. With nothing else, Max passes. Ian's upkeep has him bouncing the Sol Ring again, and he then draws for turn. He plays a Command Tower, and then replays Sol Ring, and he then plays a Mind Flayer. Ian takes control of Edgar Markov, and he then goes to combat. He swings Korvath at Maximus again, who has to block with everything, and Korvath gets taken out. In his post-combat main phase, Ian then puts the Lightning Greaves to Edgar Markov, and passes after that. Mika decides to bounce a Plains but forgets about it until later, and then draws for turn and plays a Plains. He then plays Curse of Verbosity on Max, and he goes to combat. He swings everything he can at Max, who takes the hit and drops to 9, and Mika gets to draw a card, and Mika then passes turn. Max also bounces a Plains to the Umbilicus, draws for turn, and then plays the Plains as his land for turn. He goes to combat and swings Sylvia at Ian. Ian has to block with the Mind Flayer, and with it dying, Max regains Edgar Markov. He then casts a Blood Clock and passes. Ian bounces 2 of his mana rocks on his upkeep to the Umbilicus and the Blood Clock, and then draws for turn. He then recasts the Sol Ring, and then the Arcane Signet, and he then casts Feed the Swarm, and he targets Legion's Initiative. This has Ian taking 2, and it gets destroyed, and he passes after that. Mika decides to take 4, 2 from the Blood Clock and 2 from the Umbilicus, and then draws for turn. He plays a Plains as his land for turn, and then casts Aurelius Fury on Max, dealing enough so that when he moves to combat, he's able to take him out, which he does exactly. With nothing else, he passes. Ian draws and casts the Ancient One.
He then casts Raffine and moves through combat.
In his second main phase, he equips the Lightning Greaves onto Raffine, and then passes. During his end step, Mika casts a Restoration Angel, and he then moves to his turn. Mika draws and plays a Mountain. He casts a Molten Primordial, which as it comes in, gains him control of the Ancient One. He then goes to combat, and swings out at Ian, and without sufficient blockers, Ian knows when he's beat, and scoops it up.
Game review time. This game was 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 16 seconds. And I really love the Warhammer 40,000 vehicles. If you haven't been able to tell, they're pretty much what I will always tutor for if given the chance, outside of probably Parhelion II, because they all just provide so much value. Reaver Titan is incredible, Paladin Knight is awesome, and Thunderhawk Gunship provides evasion to all of our attackers, plus it comes in with enough bodies to crew itself and something else potentially. I'm also a big fan of Maximus's Edgar Markov No Vampires but Has Vampires Somehow deck, and it's a lot of fun to see some interesting selections that he has to make. It's also always fun to see those typal kind of cards, like the Nameless Inversion, making a vampire token when he casts it, even though it's an instant. I really like the unique effect that Pramikon brings to games and how it changes the dynamic of the table. Forcing your opponents to attack in a specific way sets you up to be able to basically pillow fort yourself should you need to, and it kind of works like goad. Raffine is one of the new Capenna commanders that I've thought about a lot, and I've actually been able to have the privilege of playing someone else's deck thanks to Patreon and giving it a go. It's really fun as it allows you to pump up your commander, fill up your graveyard for graveyard reanimation strategies, or just go wide with tokens and get tons of connive triggers. In this case, Ian seemed to be more focused on attacking, but unfortunately he seemed to be stuck on 1 or 2 creatures for most of the game. He did have that Angel of Destiny, which I would love to see someone lose to, but unfortunately it just didn't get there.
This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, but it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.